Welcome back, everybody. Welcome back to the canyon. Welcome back to. I mean, I guess it's not really a build series. We're just gonna build it. We're gonna build it. We're gonna take the collection of pieces that we have. So here are some rails. We are building an EXOcutioner. Here is the bed piece. I'm doing cab only, so I got the bed piece. I ordered this tray. We're not going to be able to use it. It doesn't fit in any configuration, not with any motor that I have, nor any battery that I have. That is not the fault of the piece. It is the fault of I for ordering a piece that does not fit what I have. I have pre-tapped all of the holes in the skid. I use a spiral type tap that you use in a drill. Go very low speed, tap them out, because you will see, I don't know how we're going to mount the rails. I did watch a little video on how it's done. I have an array of tools over here, and none of them will do this. So we're going to figure that out as we go. Front body mount will probably not fit the body that I have. And then there's the rear piece that the bed attaches to. We have two options for a wheel tire, everything on 105s. We've got rock blocks and groundhogs. Those would be my two preferences. We have a number of shock choices to work with, a couple different lengths of Dravtex. We've got some GTS. I can cover the range from about 85 to 95 millimeters, somewhere in there. We've got an AGFRC A66 FHLW, which is a half height. The half height is because we are going with 10 Pro portals, which are kind of my favorite axle. For motor and gearbox, we are doing an OD3 with a dynamic 380 2000 kV. This was previously in another lightweight build. I figure this is going to come out pretty lightweight. There's not a lot to it. And then driving that is, I have two of these that aren't in service right now, Python X's. I wanted the other one. The other one has an XT30 on it. This one has an XT60 on it. I can't find it for the life of me. It's around here somewhere. And it's not really an issue one way or the other. I also got the links through EXOcaged when I ordered the EXOcutioner at the same time. And there is the important bit. I was hoping for the enormous set screw that's going to be required to mount the front links. There should be 3 set screws. Yes, there are. Okay. So, did I mention J Concepts Warlord? Because we're doing cab only. So we're going to do a Warlord. We're going to do this stuff. We're going to attempt to put it together. The funnest of the fun, the cruelest of the cruel. Looks like I probably need 10s. It comes with a lot of stainless hardware. I try to stick to stainless hardware exclusively if I'm going to use stainless hardware, and I don't believe that I have everything that would be required to assemble this. Let us get these started by hand. Now, it begins with the fun. It comes fun right out of the box in that the rails, here are your rails. The rails mount, this is forward. This is forward. So we have the really aggressive roll center in the front and a more conventional in the back, which is a little unusual, honestly. If you don't get that tamed, roll center like that can really get out of hand. So what we have to do is we have to mount the rails to the inside of the skid like this. And pre-tapping will help that quite a lot. And then I am a power tool guy. I will attack everything with, where's my buddy? Where's my pal? I will attack everything with this. Hopefully, this is a process that will need to be done once. I will need to attach these rails one time. I do have a ball end driver here, which is probably going to help. If you don't have a ball end driver, you might be able to get away without it, but that's more of an angle than I would like to put on a conventional driver. I personally, were I designing this way, I would, those feel, yeah, don't don't put power to this. I'll say that as a devotee of the power driver, don't use the power driver for this. Or alternately, once you have your printed pieces, just drill the holes out to 3 millimeter, and you put the screws in from the inside and put a nut on the outside. My confidence level when threading directly into 3D printed parts is medium low. So just go real slow. There's even more of an angle put on it once one side is on. And once you feel yourself start to get snug, don't go any farther, because it will pull all of the threads out before you know it. That's just a reality of threading metal into 3D printed parts, because we don't really know what the infill percentage is going to be. These things can and will strip out almost immediately. I'm going to use 8. I looked at the depth. I looked at the skid depth. No, we should probably get the front links on before I drop the gearbox in. We'll drop the gearbox in a minute. Now, the length of the links. It's really tough to all-purpose link lengths, because pretty much every axle has different link mounting points, and the 10 Pro portal offset, straight. The 10 Pro portal is no exception to that, because of the BTA bracket. And if you're going to run this axle, you almost have to run the BTA bracket, because they have the best execution of it, as far as I'm concerned, of any axle out right now. We are going to mount them up completely. Oh, this is just like the other set. They felt like they would barely move, and then when you run them, my goodness, are they smooth. They do not make a peep. So we are going to run these BTA, because they include all of the little bits under here. This little bag taped under here. Everybody loves an unboxing, do they not? It's a shame that there's literally no kit that comes fitted with these axles. I mean, they're great. Potentially unpopular opinion, though I don't really think so. I think that Axial's implementation of BTA on this axle is the best implementation of BTA. It's so clean. And I'm a big fan of the 10 Pro axle, because it is fully modular, so you can replace every piece. You can add weight as needed. The solitary drawback that I would have to state is because I'm lazy, and that is to change to the BTA bracket, you have to basically disassemble one whole side of the axle, because you have to take this big piece off. But that's nice. But on the other hand, it's also nice because it means that the configuration for SOA, the configuration for BTA, and the configuration for CMS all use different parts. There's no overlap. So we pull that big guy off. I only have one. I have one 10 Pro axle running chassis mounted steering, because they did such a good job of the BTA implementation that they're going to single-handedly keep the low-profile servo market running. That goes like that. There is always the issue of not paying close enough attention. And they are axial. Never forget when dealing with an axial product that you're dealing with an axial product. And they will use every screw length in that bin to assemble a vehicle. And the bin goes 6, 8, 10, 12, 14, 16, 18, 20, 22 is in this bin. And anything longer is in another bin. And axial will use every single one of them. And there are times where you go, was this really necessary? Did we really have to use all these sizes? But as far as the implementation of this goes, and I have purchased several aftermarket servo BTA brackets for the 10 Pro axle. And I recommend, in large part, I recommend against all of them. They add weight basically at the highest point of the axle. There's a carbon fiber one, which you have to use lock nuts, all lock nuts to mount your servo, which is frustrating to an almost extreme degree. Meanwhile, this is just very, very cleanly done. And then we just put it back together. We reassemble what we disassembled. And I could show you if I grabbed another servo. We're going to put a half height on here, which is going to have, and a low half height at that, which is going to give you a lot of clearance. Because the servo mount is high, and I'll just get one. First thing that popped out of the bin is a 444, which is relatively indicative of just a standard full height servo. You drop that guy in there. It's just below the tube. It's just below the tube. So you can run a full height on this axle with absolutely no problem. I do it. On the straight, if you want to go BTA on the straight, you kind of want to run a half height. Because the portals are going to give us more ground clearance, which is like why we do it. But then when we drop, I mean, when I said the AGFAC is low, it's real low. I never remember which way. I don't think the 10 Pro axle comes with any links, unless I missed it. No, they sell this basically as a conversion. So if you buy these axles, no tie rod, no drag link, no nothing. You get to sort that. That's not a problem for I, but it might be a problem for some. Getting stuck on the brand new fresh wires. Push that down out of the way a little bit. So I like a bit longer of a drag link, so I tend to mount these spline in. Also, that puts the output right up against where the drive shaft is, so it's a little easier to tuck out of the way rather than it hanging out over here by the link in the shock. 100% personal preference. So what I'm going to do, is we're going to set those over there. We're going to set these over here. And this is the rear uppers. And these are the front lowers. We're going to operate from the front lowers with the hope that the front upper is the right length. Because there's no, I mean, this is not atypical. With some few exceptions, you'll get some reasonably detailed instructions with some. The extent of the instructions with the EXOcutioner is, here are the screws that are included and here's where they go. I did watch a little video on EXOcaged on like how to mount the rails. Why are there 4 holes here and 3 holes here? Because you can kind of move the skid forward, backward. He mentioned that this is how he runs his chassis, so I'm just going to set this one up the same way. Because, okay, so lowers are going to want high clearance. I'm all but certain. We will also find out, the folks who did the 3D printing, They should fit these hollow balls, yes, that would be the idea. So we'll bash these links together, and then I will get a little rough measurement, and we will see what the front uppers look like. I believe in the video his build is on Mias Capras. As soon as I saw this chassis, my thought was 10 Pro Portal from the go. I wanted 10 Pro Portal for this. Mostly because I feel like I don't have enough rigs on 10 Pro Portals. It is about as spendy as I like to go on an axle. We'll get the link tool out and make sure that these are at least reasonably close, because I feel like these links, which were ordered from EXO with the chassis at the same time, they should position the front axle kind of where we want it. Link tool. It's actually and now getting extremely hard to find. I think RPM might have discontinued this as well. There are others on Amazon, different brands, but of course RPM just did it with a sort of elegance that we don't see from others. And you put them on there, and what you want to happen is you want that needle to be pointing at 0, like it is right now. It is like the width of the line that way. So this link is probably part of a millimeter shorter than the one on the other side. I shoot for the same exact lengths, so what I'll do is I'll measure edge to edge. 70.3 millimeters on that. And on this one, 70.2. So we're 1/10 of a millimeter apart. Like I said, a fraction of the line. That is not a dragon I choose to chase. So what we're going to do is we're going to grab filler screws. Looks like a 16 will be the right length for this axle. And we're just going to pin the link to the axle end so that we can see where the front axle is going to position itself. Because this axle uses the link is double shear, and the shock is just mounted onto the outside of the double shear, so it's single shear on the shock. Never had a problem. I'm going to have to put a bunch of screws in place, because what's going to happen with everything loose fastened is it's just going to all fall apart on me. So some 16s in there. I have no idea, because we're not converting, we're building. So I have no idea what shock length the chassis is going to request. Good thing it comes with a 3x35 set screw, because a 3x35 set screw is not something that I just have lying around. Now, I did pre-tap this, and I am going to hit it with power, but like I say, do as I say, not as I do. I do not recommend hitting stuff like this with power. Oh, I did want to say. Nice. It's a good fit. It's a good fit. I like to go from this side. Just keep your speed down, particularly if you haven't pre-tapped, because most of these melt at a temperature lower than you think they do. So it's pretty snug on the fitment there. And that is why we're operating from a position that this is the lower link. I only want to attach these one time, because removing them multiple times is a good way to strip out the holes in the chassis. And then your recourse is, I guess, to order another chassis. That went in quite nicely. And that looks like a pretty good position to me. Looks pretty good. Yeah, good clearance. This is something that comes a little bit out of experience, which is when you see big roll center like that, just know that you want the offset ends. Now, I tend to plan for links level. So if we just have a little something to set this on, I can kind of guess tomato. Now, I need to assemble a tie rod for that so that it's not flopping around. And I'll put the rear links together, which looks exactly like what you just saw. Then we can determine which shock length, whether we need an 85, 90, or 95. And then we can get to the process of attaching the front uppers. And honestly, looking at that in the package and looking at that there, we're going to be really close. Because of the design, it just has the two holes, a lower and an upper. We don't have a lot of mounting options, but those might work. All right, let me tell you what's what. If you have to take a break for lunch while just trying to get links on a vehicle, it has really taken a turn. We've learned a couple of a few things. A, should we alphabetically or no? We'll number them. We'll number them for convenience. Mias rod ends don't like 10 Pro axles, and by greater extension, the EXOcutioner does not like 10 Pro axles. This rapidly degenerated into, that's distracting, degenerated into a fully iterative process in which I assembled 6 or 7 different front link configurations just in an attempt to get the front axle to move. Because of the link mount placement on the 10 Pro axle, the links included are clearly intended for a Capra axle. They're intended for a Capra axle. So putting this on here is really properly ice skating uphill. I ended up using old Traxxas turnbuckles, I think from a Slash. These are angled axial, and these are 10 Pro ends with element balls in them to where we can actually get articulation without it just absolutely locking up. Again, trending into the dislike of the 10 Pro axle by the chassis. It's one of my favorite axles. The upper links that they include for the rear are far too long, way too long. And on those Capra axles, the link mount is way back here on the back edge. So if you're putting something other than Capra axles under your EXOcutioner, be prepared to source all of your upper links, and the front end will. The rear end wasn't too bad. We ended up with I want to say these are 157. They're almost as long as this thing will go, 157. The uppers you can use between a 125 and a 145. I went in the middle. These are 135 eye to eye for the uppers. The front uppers are very, very short, around 52 millimeters long, because we have this big length of the servo mount. It's pretty great now. It doesn't fight me in any appreciable way. I tried mounting to the outside on this point. No configuration didn't result in the link striking something. Usually hitting either part of the chassis base or right here on the chassis itself. So, it was arduous, is how I would classify it. The entire iterative process, the part that I unfortunately had to participate in, and you blissfully did not, was around 2 hours. To get them all mounted. I was going to slap the gearbox in there, but instead, I looked at this thing, and by look at it, I mean I grabbed one of my Mr. Penn And I kind of looked like this and I went, it wants 85s. Luckily, I had as I mentioned, one of the sets of Deluxe are indeed gunmetal 85s. We just have to put hollow balls in them and source longer screws from the bins. I've lost it. There we are. There we are. We can put this aside for the moment. The mess was really well and truly something to behold. I had every link bin that I own upended, desperately trying to find any combination of front link that would work. Ordinarily, I go to, I wouldn't say great lengths, but I go to modestly great lengths in an effort to get all of the rod ends to match. That was not in the cards for this. It came down to survival among anything else. Just get rod ends that will fit and match the pairs. There are plenty of vehicles in this workshop that have 5 or 6 different kinds of rod ends on them. Because more often than not, sadly, it's pretty common for when you're assembling a link for it to come out halfway in between. Like the space from the axle to the hole on the chassis is like, I would like a 132 millimeter link, please. And you're like, well, I'll do what I can. I just realized that absent-mindedly, I've filled about half of these with 7.5s and half of them with 7s because I was grabbing out of 2 drawers at the same time. It doesn't matter because they're single shear at the bottom and they're going to have to be mounted with spacers at the top. I'm also going to have to fabricate something to accommodate the battery. That's a 6. That's a 7. To accommodate the battery and the Python. Now, there are little threaded fellows. Well, could be threaded. You see the holes in the top of the chassis sides. I can potentially just make some little side pieces and put them there. So that is why we are simply going to mount these with lock nuts. That's a 7, and that's a 7, so that one's good to go. That's a 7, and that's a 7, that one's good to go. All right, we're 4 for 8. That's a 7.5, and that's a 7.5, and that's a 7, and that's a 7.5. I'm not going to say that it begins to grind you down a little bit mentally when you've remade the same suspension link 6 times and you're like, come on guys, can we just get this to go? So we're going to get the shocks in place so that we can set this thing down and it can hold itself under its own weight. And we will not fabricate anything to hold the battery and the speed control. There's a bunch of 6mm that have escaped over into the 7mm bin. We're not going to fabricate anything to hold the electronics until we know that this thing has clearances, because there are no drive shafts in it. The gearbox is not mounted yet. There is every possibility under the sun that the 10 Pro EXOcutioner war of 2025 is going to flare up again. So I want to do nothing of permanence because I want to make that battery tray one time. So those are 16, so I need 23s or 25s. We'll probably just go with 25s. So I'm going to need 4 of those. And I think the easiest way will be to, start over from the beginning. easiest, where it's going to be easiest. I have unexpressed, but nevertheless present concerns about the body mount. It is 3D printed. It will be easy for me to duplicate and replace because it's a big 3D printed wing that sticks out. And sadly, sometimes for the greater good, sacrifices must be made in order to build the thing as it is, in my impression, intended to be built. We are going to have to, we're going to have to do a Warlord cab real dirty. It is going to have to be cut down a lot. These mounts are very, very low. Once I have spacers in place and the rear shock, the front and rear shocks attached to the chassis, we'll do a little thing in which I will set the we'll just slapdash one of these wheel tire combos on it so we can get it up off the ground. And for your amusement, I will set the unmodified Warlord cab down atop the chassis so that you can see what the intentions of the creator are with relative to body placement. This thing is crying out for an anvil or something extremely low profile because the body mount is basically sitting on the chassis rail. These need to be 23s, but we're putting 25s in them because we like to live on the edge. So what I would like to do, grab a tire of some sort. A tire will probably have about this spacing. Okay, it's perfect. We have droop limitation brought about by the front axle because the link binds up and you can't get full droop. Let's hope that something like a 5mm spacer will be adequate, which will probably call for, we'll guess on a 20. So where is this going to put? Of course, the first one we grab has got plastic on it. Where are we going to go for full droop? Because this is the easiest way to select shock holes in my estimation. Okay, so that will allow us near full droop and get us pretty close to the limit. Okay, so we could get away with a 90 or 95 because the 85 is now kind of down in the front hole. I'm not going to mess with springing. I'm not going to mess with any of that until this is effectively assembled. I feel like the front body mount, the cross brace piece, I will have to refabricate myself because, hey, a 20 was spot on. Just guessed our way into that one. It's just too close. It's too close to the chassis. I don't know if I'll be able to get the front of the cab low enough without cutting the whole front grille off. And it's a personal thing of mine. This is on me, not on anyone else. I just grabbed the same one. You know what? This is on me and not on anyone else. I really have a strong aversion to carving up bodies. I don't like it. I like to cut a body as little as possible because at the end of the day, where are you at? Where are you at? There you go. That weighs a few ounces. It weighs significantly less than this. So that weight is offset. There's not really any drawback. I mean, yeah, it kind of looks cool sometimes when the body's slammed way down, but it tends to give you more problems than it gives you benefits. So let us see how this looks. I could go to a little bit wider of a spacer, but I don't think I'm gonna. Let's see. Yeah, that's perfect. That's perfect in that hole right there. Look at that. I mean, I do hope that this front part works. We get a decent amount of articulation. That's probably about the amount of droop that I would want because I want my ride height to sit right about there. Springing is a complete unknown at this moment. So we just look at, what I do is I look at the height, the relative height of the axle. First, I need to get 2 more spacers of approximately equivalent length, and I run out of that length because I use them all the time. So, I've lost my mind and my caliper. Do you see the caliper here anywhere on the bench? I don't see it either. It's 22s. Based on the size of the spacer that I pulled out of the bin, the first 2 that I found were the same size. We're looking at 22s. So the way I do this is I look at the full droop of the front, and we want to kind of approximate the same droop on the rear, which is going to put us, I could go for a little more rear droop. Right about, okay, we're going to go right 4 forward upper row. And when in Rome, I didn't bother to tap any because I didn't know which one I was going to use. Go down to 1 4 forward upper row. While we're at it, I imagine we should do the other side as well. 1, 2, 3. I don't know French for 4. Five is cinq, right? I don't know. Why don't I know 4? I just don't. So it's going to sit. We'll see how it sits. We'll see where the ride height is relatively. And this ride height is not specifically indicative of anything because we have no idea if the springing is even in the neighborhood. That spacer is real close. I think this is a 7. I would prefer a 6, I think. But I didn't want to dig. So. And on the 7, a 22 is right there. So a 6 and a 20 would probably work out equally well. That looks pretty strongly okay. Oh wait, I blocked you. There you go. I feel like the rock blocks look like what I want to see. Are they going to be the tire? I have no idea. Yet at the same time, here I am, making sure that they're mounting in the correct direction. They don't even give you wheel nuts. Like, it's so clear that Axial is like, well, if you want portals, you can get these portal axles. We're not going to give you any. Then you're just going to have some Tempro straights sitting on your bench with no tie rod, no anything. You would think that there would be. I was looking in the box like I misplaced something because it needs a drag link of the appropriate length. Oh, it was that one. I had it all along. The wheelbase is 335 millimeters on the included links, which is A-okay by me. I might have run a skosh shorter. I'm a 330 man myself, but we're definitely not going to have any departure problems on this setup. So we're going to get wheels on it. And then we'll slap a gearbox in it. I'll tell you something right now. Oh, it's very light. It's very, very light right now. It doesn't have any of the parts that physically make it into a vehicle. And that is just about Link's level. So we've got a not unappreciable level of, I would go 1 hole forward on the rear, maybe not. I don't know. It's sitting genuinely right about like I like it, and with a little more weight in it. Yeah. I think so. I think so. Also, it should be pointed out that there's a real difference. Can you see it? Can you see what I'm talking about? Let me get 2 more screws in here. Putting screws into the front body mount feels like putting screws into a stick of cold butter. There's no resistance whatsoever. And also, there's a real difference. Like, this is pretty good. There's a real difference in the print quality on that front piece. It also appears to be made out of something else. I'm not a 3D print guy. I don't really care for it. But the bed and the skid definitely appear to have either be the same material, same machine, same whatever. This thing, though, very shiny and doesn't seem quite as feisty as the rest. Now, it would probably be okay. No, we have to work in order. We have to work in order. I want to cut the body. I want to get the body set in so that we can go about fabricating a battery tray and receptacle for the speed control. I think also, unfortunately, I don't have anything in an appropriate KV, but I think, well, let me see the link movement. You could get away with a 540, but this thing really wants something shorter. 2000 KV is the highest that I have. I don't have anything higher on hand. I have a bunch of 1850s. I've got a real pancake in a 1470, but you don't have a huge range of gearing available to you with an OD3. So we have to operate. Oh, they literally feel like they don't work. This is exactly what my other set of 10 Pro portals felt like. Out of the box, you're like, oh my God, they're terrible. And no, they work absolutely great. So I haven't even popped. Oh no, I did. At one point, I had to pop the rear axle apart to investigate, and there is so much of that kind of deep blue axial grease in there as to genuinely be concerning. So they really have an intention of this body being all the way down, and atop that, I think for the fitment to be something resembling proper, you would have to, this should be here, right about there, probably an inch for, like, this is really far back. What level of effort do we want to get into to get a Warlord onto this? Or do we try to fit something else? It has to be a cab because we're at a 335 millimeter wheelbase. Articulation is all right. Okay. Big flex isn't necessary. About 100 millimeters in the rear. About 110 in the front. A little bit longer in the front. Could even that out pretty easily by going to a there's definitely room to run a longer shock in the rear. There's a little bit of room to run a longer shock in the front. I've got the 95s. I could go upper hole and mount the 95s and see how it looks on that. But I think for this, we've got a nice color collaboration between the shocks and the gearbox. So we're gonna take this guy out on the rocks for the first time on 85s. So it is not spoken, nor did I see it mentioned anywhere, but I think this is kind of what it's looking for. because the wheel at full lock is closer to where we want to be. And it's not as if there's that big of a difference, you know. The anvil is just very low. Its hood looks long because it has like no rake to the windshield. The windshield's like 10 millimeters tall. That anvil is for another project. It is already committed. So we're just gonna we're gonna have to carve this thing up significantly to get it to fit anyway. So, well, actually, maybe not that bad. Maybe not that bad. This, you know what? Some bodies look a lot better when they get cut up. Stage Killer is one. Looks, I genuinely believe it looks better once it's cut up. Only has to sit probably right about there. We're probably going to have to chop the front out here. You know, I make an effort. I do make an effort. And we're definitely getting the throw out of the 10 Pro portals. We're almost into the shock. We're almost into the shock. We should be all right. These will be double cartoned in the future, so they're a little smoother. But yeah, a little bit of road grader action. All right. Okay. All right. Listen. All right. Okay. I'm going to try to I'm going to make every effort to accommodate these 3 mount points. That's the idea. So, bid farewell to 0438 Warlord. We'll see how much or how little we've got to cut it up. All right. So, first of all, after another hour or so fitting the body, and it's not precisely how I would want it. It's not exactly how I would want it, but you can cut the Warlord down a decent bit and it still looks okay. The problem is that front axle realistically needs to move back about 10 millimeters is what it is, because these are way out to front. They would be tucking in pretty nicely right behind that front. We're gonna get some pirate ship noises out of it when it is ready to run, because as I had halfway mentioned, there's the body mount. Yet we're mounted because that mount is intended for something specific. It wasn't indicated in any way, but it is intended for something specific. This is a battle of wills, is what is happening. This chassis does not want 10 Pro axles. This chassis does not want a J-Concepts Warlord on it. But that's what it's going to get. And my will is stronger, and if need be, I can grab some Delrin, and I will fabricate a front mount to replace the other one, and the servo nests right in, just like it did on the other one. So, will we have to shorten the front end? Well, I wouldn't mind, but those links are pretty short as it is. Were I designing and or building this from the ground up, this is that old axiom where sometimes it's just cheaper to knock it down and start over, or quicker to knock it down and start over. I have to bend to the will on the one hand of the skid and the chassis rails. I can't combat those, because this was intended to have Capra axles and probably a Stage Killer on it. Basically, I don't know if when this piece was designed, I don't know if they ever actually fitted it to anything, or if it was fitted to something, it was fitted to something with Capra axles mounted to it, because the Capra link mount points will be further apart, which will draw the axle back a little bit. So I understand, on the one hand, as a person and maker of frequently bespoke things, you cannot account for everything. There is truly no such thing as a universal fitment. So I knew that I would be encountering these sorts of issues before I even started. And what we do is we end up where we end up. Realistically, this thing's going to get a little Radiolink R4 FGM Micro in here. So the added weight will be this and this. Those receivers weigh like 6 grams or something, so we won't even add it. I've got a pair of Mias drive shafts in a bag, which will do a reasonable facsimile of being the weight there. And that's about it. Like, it's missing a receiver, but so plus or minus, you can add a couple grams and guesstimate. It's not gonna be heavy. It is not gonna be heavy by a stretch. Get this on quick. In the gram units, 2148. 2148. That is appreciably light. 335 millimeter wheelbase, full-on Class 2's 475 with a body, with all of the stuff in it. 2148, also known as, AKA in the Freedom units, 4.73 pounds. So unless something raises its head angrily, in anger, I don't see this rig crossing above 5 pounds. And mind you, there is no weight added. We will see how it runs. So when we're built, we should be in this 4.7 to 4.8 pound range. I would love to put Vanquish shafts or 10.2 shafts on it if I can cobble some together that'll fit. We'll use cut-to-lengths. We'll use steel sliders. We'll use whatever we need. So what I need to do today is not more of this. We have completed the amount that I can put in a single day's session, and I figure that's a good time to stop, because the Warlord is so chunky. Stage killer would be like here. Because he's so chunky, I'm definitely thinking the easiest, the simplest way. Dig into my scrap bins, get a couple pieces of Kydex, and make some little sides that come out here. Put the battery on one, put the speed control on the other. Bish, bosh, and Bob's your uncle. I am still debating and contemplating putting the battery, building a tray right here. But because of the BTA, because it comes so far back, we can't really get this battery. Like, I could get a little holster for it right there, which might be nice, because gearbox is not heavy. This is not particularly heavy. We will not have any big concentrations of weight. So I'm thinking just a little zoop on one side and a little zoop on the other side. I don't think that the weight, we don't know. 2000 kV on this much reduction. Could run it on 4S, could run it on 3S. 3S 850, could be a 4S 650. We don't know. We'll find that out after I fabricate. Yeah, see, I mean, you see how nice that would be? Just like that. That would probably weight out really good too, because on the BTA, the servo is way over here. So I'll do a little bit of fastener cleanup. I'll do that sort of thing. We'll get 2 sides on it. You'll come back, and when you see it the next, actually these Mias look like they'll be the perfect length for the rear. Let me just pop this open real quick. We're going full Midwest on the outro here. Nothing happened that was unanticipated, really, except for how low the front body mount was. Okay. So that's perfect. That one's perfect, which means this one will be just a skosh. I believe these are 2 of the exact same length. They will just be a skosh long. How deep do the splines go inside the Mias? They go down about 17 millimeters or so. I would not want to take too much off of the length of this, but you've come in very handy here in the closing, everyone, because I can go on Amazon and I can order one that is how much shorter than this one. Get on there. So we'll have the drive shafts ready and sorted. Oh, okay. So a little something. Ooh, that is real tight on the clearance there. Clearance. We need one that is about 30 millimeters shorter than this one. Easy peasy. This is a 120. So we need like a 90. Bosh. Should be made of steel on here when you see it. All right. Sides will be made. I will probably also cut the double cardons on the same day that I'm doing it, because that is enough steer angle that we're going to get big time camming at that amount of throw. Well, yeah, we're going to get big time camming at that amount of throw. So we've got a lightweight here. Two little pieces of Kydex. Sub 5 pounds. We may have to add some unsprung in the future. Real easy. A 10 Pro Portal is the same as Capra or 10.3. So there are some big chunky weights that you can put on there pretty inexpensively if necessary. I like to... Don't just throw brass at something before you've driven it. Run it and see how it behaves. So that is exactly what we'll do. I like the look of the rock blocks on it. I might go out. We're going to run this offset hub. We're going to run this wheel. We'll run this tire. We'll do all that up in the next one. You'll get to see a little bit of the breakdown. You'll get to see what went where. And then next time, on to the rocks, which is, I think, pretty quick, as this is something amounting to a build, as I had to build a motor spacer. I had to build a front body mount. I'm going to have to build sides. I had to build links 14 times. So, I don't have to build any more links today. And that honestly, that feels pretty good. So, thank you so much, everybody. Thank you for dropping by the canyon. Look forward to seeing you in the next one. Come on back to see how this thing turns out. It's a spiteful thing. We have an adversarial relationship because it wants to be one thing and I want it to be what I want it to be. So I don't think I need to cut more out of the bottom of that body. I think it's all right. Should be a goer. So we'll find out in the next one. Come on back. In between now and then, please, one and all, do your very best to have a good one, everybody. We'll see you in the next one. That's all.